Welcome back to this part two of Decoding Your Breath's Language. I am Remington Steele, the founder and instructor for We Are the, well, that's my nonprofit. We Are the Village Teen Moms. I'm so used to doing stuff for them. But I am the founder of Breathe with Rem and the author of Breathe with Me. See yourself through your breath. So I'm excited about getting into this part two where we'll begin to kind of dive into a few of the breath's language and just briefly go over everything in this free workshop that will be on YouTube. So, our breath has a distinct language when inhaled that sends a message to our brains, communicating to our bodies what to think, how to feel, and how to react. Learning to interpret and consciously guide these internal languages can lead to profound improvements in stress management, emotional balance, and overall well-being. So we'll start with the breath of love, and this is actually the breath I like to default everyone to because it offers the greatest benefits. I go over this in great detail in my book, Breathe with Me. But in with the breath of love, it's deep, it's rhythmic, and it's completely full breaths. These breaths are intentional, which allows the body and the breath to access. Excuse me, which allows the breath to access parts of the lungs that is not usually accessed in the other types of breaths. And so the breath of love is deep, rhythmic, and intentional breath patterns that signal safety, openness, and emotional connection. This is extremely beneficial because with that, it offers also a very beneficial hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is a wonderful hormone that is extremely healing as well as offers the body some the necessary benefits for restoring and healing itself back to homeostasis. So this type of breathing often resembles long, slow inhales through the nose, followed by a relaxed, extended exhale, sometimes accompanied with a soft sigh or a gentle hum. This kind of breath we naturally take when we're holding a baby, looking into the eyes of someone we love, or feeling completely at ease. The breath of love tells the body you're safe, you're connected, you're supported. I do want to specify that the breath of love is not always the breath we breathe around our romantic love. And so that's very important to know the difference. Not necessarily, well, for yeah, necessarily for that reason, but for a reason of protecting the heart, but also for the reason of understanding what breath to go to when we're using the breath of love for safety. And that's what I tend to teach my clients and those that I consult with, using the breath of love to restore them and to pull them out of those stuck in states, those depressed states, those anxious states of being, and so even anger. And so when you think of the breath of love, this would not necessarily be a romantic love, but maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, maybe a pet. And so there's so many other forms of love that we can use and pull from in a platonic way that doesn't lead to possibility of feeling confused by, well, that wasn't love at all. If they years later we find that that wasn't, and a lot of times it's lust. It's the breath of lust instead of the breath of love. And It's good to know the difference. But we will go over these different breaths later in the training or in the workshop, excuse me. And you can also read the read my book, and it goes into greater details, kind of even explaining the chemicals and explaining also the emotions and how it leads to different emotional states or mental places. So now we'll move to the breath of anger, which is sharp, shallow, and often forceful. This is usually held in the upper chest, and it's also a lot of times accompanied with being held. And so that's kind of where that forceful comes in at, is when it's held, and then when it's released, it's in a forceful state. And so this breath can become problematic because it calls for it calls for hormones that releases a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. And while those are not bad hormones in general, they can become problematic over time if we continue to lean on the breath of anger instead of trying to pull us out of those states where we just dwell. So this breath of anger sends a clear message to the brain where it prepares us for conflict. That's so important. The breath of anger prepares us for conflict. Conflict may not even be present, but it prepares us for it, which to me says you're playing a part of this conflict. And so understanding our role, even if it is just being able to identify our breath and to observe ourselves, interpret that we are breathing the breath of love, or excuse me, the breath of anger, and begin to regulate ourselves by choosing a different breath, i.e., the breath of love that we can go to, and so that our inability to make those choices or choose those choices, that is us choosing conflict. And so I like to kind of point that out, because a lot of times we think the world or people are out to get us, but if we are choosing the breath of anger, we're preparing the mind and body for conflict that is not present. And the thing is when we are breathing that, we're bypassing our prefrontal cortex, which allows us to make rational decisions. And so if we aren't thinking rational, then we may indeed be preparing for conflict, putting on armor with our defenses, and trying to protect something that isn't even threatened. And that goes into a lot. I'm getting into a whole new kind of workshop when I kind of explain that. But so now we move to the breath of anxiety. And the breath of anxiety is very similar to the breath of anger, especially when in action, and can look a lot alike. And so I like to point this out because in places of authority or law enforcement, understanding and knowing what the breath of anxiety looks like in another is extremely important, because a lot of times anxiety is confused for anger in law enforcement situations or scenarios, where they may see someone who looks angry or combative when actually they're anxious and they're really trying to get their point across, because they feel threatened, they feel scared. And so it's very important to notice that subtle difference. So with anger, it's sharp, shallow, and forceful. This is sharp, shallow, and erratic or irregular. This that subtle change creates a different emotion, a different experience for the person who is breathing. It also creates a different call for hormones for the different situation. And so this is where the anger would call for a surge of adrenaline and cortisol to fight, protect, defend. Um, Anxiety calls for a drip. And so with this drip, this can even be more not deadly, excuse me, let me not say that, but this could be more dangerous, is the word I was looking for, than anger, because this slow drip continues to drip until we're out of the anxious state. The problem with that is a lot of us live in anxiety. We were born in anxiety. We only know anxiety. And so we are breathing this breath, which is chest filled, fast, irregular, and we don't know another way. This upper chest breath only brings oxygen to just a third of your capacity, and being stuck in the throat isn't even allowing for a proper exchange. So you're really keeping spent air in your lungs and not really getting enough out, which creates that loop of anxiety. So what you're doing is you're kind of getting yourself stuck in this roundabout of, I'm anxious from this outside situation. I'm also anxious from the chemicals being released, and I'm also anxious from the air that's creating anxiety in me because I can't breathe properly. Um, it can be very overwhelming, and it's not anything to be insensitive to. It's something to take control of. With the Breathe with Real method, I teach to observe what's going on around you, observe what you're feeling, observe what you're thinking, observe what's going on inside of you. Every observe as much as you can observe, interpret what you need to interpret as with truth only. Um, so and even interpret it with, and when I say with truth only, sometimes you have to interpret something that may not be truth, but interpret it as you need, but knowing that that is not truth, if that makes sense. But you want to interpret everything you need, because that is understanding. That's basically understanding the situation. Once you observe and interpret, you regulate. Now that you know I'm in this state, I have identified and interpreted that I'm in an anxious state, I can begin to think of a situation where I feel loved, or simply extend my exhale, because with the breath of love, the exhale is extended. So I can extend my exhale. If nothing else, I can extend my exhale. That is regulation. And so, and then you just apply what you need to apply from there. And so, but that's the Breathe with Real method that kind of goes hand in hand with understanding these different breath patterns. So the breath of anxiety is typically fast, shallow, and irregular, often centered in the chest and even the throat. This breath is marked by overbreathing or hyperventilation, frequent sighing, or breath holding. It reflects a body that is on high alert, a mind trapped in uncertainty or fear. Individuals feeling anxious or anxiety may not even notice how their breath is changing. Yet, this unconscious shift is a core component of what sustains and intensifies anxious feelings, putting you in that loop again. So, understanding the breath, and we'll explore it in just a little bit, is extremely important. Again, with law enforcement, knowing the difference is can be life or death. And so I teach matching the breath And we will go over that, I believe, in part 3 of this. So please stay tuned and continue to watch. But when you match the breath, when you use that tool that's already inside of you to match your breath, then what will happen is you will begin to feel the exact same thing that they're feeling. And so if they're anxious, you will begin to feel anxious. This doesn't take a long time. When you begin to breathe in and match their pattern, you will instantly begin to feel as they feel. So if they feel anxious, you will begin to feel anxious. If they feel angry, you will begin to feel angry. And so this is so important because this is something that you can lean on instead of the trigger. And I do understand that, you know, your life is at risk too, and you have to protect yourself and sometimes the community. But again, this is something that can happen for you very quickly. First, having yourself regulated will allow you to make clear decisions and already be in a state where you can quickly match them. And if you come off regulation at all, you instantly are able to know exactly where you're headed and what you're feeling. And right there is enough time to make a decision. We say 90 seconds can change any emotion. Um, and I know 90 seconds can be very long in any particular situation, but it doesn't really take 90 seconds. It just really, by 90 seconds, everything has completely happened and changed over, but it happened long before that 90 seconds. And so I just want to kind of put that out there as a tool that maybe you can use with confidence, and possibly help. So the breath of fear is very similar to the breath of anxiety. Is actually the same, except it is stemming from the mouth. So when we are breathing the breath of fear, we're usually mouth breathing. When we're in the breath of fear, we've been in this state for quite some time. We've passed anxiety, we've passed shock or startled or all these other things, and we are sitting in fear. This sharp, shallow, erratic stemming from the mouth. Unless you're a mouth breather, most of the time you are not breathing. You're breathing from your nose before you get in a feared state, and so you will transition through whatever situation may be. And a lot of times we think we're fearful, but we're anxious or we're concerned. But fear, sharp, shallow, erratic, stemming from the mouth. The breath of fear is it usually is, again, upper chest. It's chest filled. You usually can even visibly see really well the breath of fear from the chest. It is an immediate involuntary response triggered by the amygdala, the brain center, alarm center, signaling the presence of danger, whether real or perceived. And so, if you're a mouth breather, you want to kind of be more mindful with moving to the breath, breathing in through your nose, so that at least you're out of that breath of fear state, which calls for the same chemicals in the same way as anxiety, the cortisol and adrenaline. But it again, that mouth breathing is, you're not filtering the air that's coming in. It's shocking the organs because it's not able to warm. So it's doing other things as well as asking for harmful chemicals. And so that is really kind of another reason why we say don't breathe in from your mouth unless you have to. So we'll take a moment and we will explore these breaths. And so we're going to do love, we're going to do lust because I want you to know the difference and feel the difference when I'm in a like doing this in with the groups of people or in workshops or talks. There's usually always a couple, and it is so funny when I have to ask them to explore the breath of lust by thinking of someone to lust on. So I will be asking you to do the same today. We will just be pausing in between each one. Um, I'll name it and then I'll ask you to pause until you unpause me, I guess, and we move on. So we're gonna go through love, lust, anger, anxiety, fear, excitement, and we may do safety and peace, or we may not, because I didn't go over it with you here today. So take a moment to gather yourself and pause anything that may be distracting at this time and just allow yourself to settle within yourself. And now I want you to bring to mind a person, maybe a place, a thing or a pet, maybe a situation that just really filled you with love. You could feel it around you. You could see it in the air, so to speak. Consider something or someone. Remember, not a romantic love. And meditate for a moment on not on what, but of what is happening within you. You can pause me here. And now we will release love. And we will pick up lust. Consider a romantic love this time. And maybe one that you know for sure was definitely lust. And for just this brief moment, we will use them to explore ourselves for more information. Remember to notice what is happening within you. Notice what you're thinking about, how your breath feels, where the breath moves in your body. Pause me here as you meditate on this lustful situation. Not too long, okay? And now we will move to anger. Let go of lust completely, shake it off. And now we think of a time, a person, a situation, nothing too traumatic, but something that really boils your blood, something that makes you angry or pisses you off, that you can explore within yourself what you feel, how you're thinking, how you're breathing. Learn yourself in this situation, in this moment, because a lot of times when we're angry, we don't have the time. We're not even thinking about trying to explore ourselves. So let's go back and pause it long here and really explore your thoughts, explore what you are feeling, where you're tense, everything. Write it down if you must. I encourage it. So that way you can begin to observe and understand and interpret yourself. Pause me here. Now we will let go of anger and pick up anxiety. Anxiety is something you are not afraid of, but something that is it makes you anxious. It don't make you it doesn't sit well with you. I like to give the example of, you leave me in a room full of kids and I'm anxious, but I'm not scared of them. So think of something that you are really anxious of, and pause me here and explore yourself. Now that we have explored anxiety, fully let that go. Breathe it out, shake it out, let it go, and let's pick up fear. Now, fear, we want to think of something that truly brings fear. You leave me in a room full of squirrels. Now I'm afraid. Um, and so think of something that truly brings you fear, and pause me here and begin to explore what is happening within you. Now, welcome back, and let that fear go. And we will lastly end with excitement. So, I want you to think of something that brings you excitement, something that is thrilling and fun to you. I know we did not go over excitement. Excitement is actually the exact same breath pattern as fear. The only difference is there's an audible exhale. And so think of a time where you were so spent with joy and excitement that, and just explore that and see what shows up, what you hear, what you remember and feel within you. Pause me here. Okay, so we are going to pause here. We're going to end here. I am going to stop sharing my screen, and just thank you for taking the time to do this part 2 with me, and decoding the breath's language. Again, you can learn so much more by purchasing and reading my book, soon to come on audiobook as well. Breathe with me, see yourself through your breath. Also, I have just released my Breathe with Method journal, which kind of helps you begin to explore these different methods, as well as understand the breath's language a bit more deeper. I also have a 31-day breathing into awareness journal that is extremely beneficial and useful. I have heard. Also, I have found it very beneficial for myself as well. So, thank you for being part of our spending time and learning on this part 2. And I look forward to seeing you in part 3. Bye.